But a leftist has decided to write an article in which she says Diversity Inc. is a big scam.
Based.
Yeah, based. I didn't expect
Agree.
that one. Her solutions to the scam is to do racial discrimination, which not really a solution, but whatever. So this is the article in Time magazine. Diversity has become booming business, so where are the results? This is the question you've been pondering a long time, which is, if we go to the diversity department, you want all this money, what have you produced in the last 10 years?
How do we hold someone accountable for not having actually produced the results? And I love the way they've got this here. We just want to sit at the table. We just want to sit at the table. Okay, now we want to rearrange the table because we're not happy with the table. It's like, I get the feeling these demands aren't the end of the demands that are going to be made, are they?
No, nor does it have anything to do with procedure, as will be made apparent. So in here she says, in 2003, MIT professor Thomas Cochen noted that companies were spending an estimated $8 billion a year on diversity efforts.
And that was in 2003. Imagine what that is now.
But since Trump's election, and with the emergence of movements like #MeToo and Black Lives Matter, the industry has exploded.
There we go.
The industry of diversity.
Really is your ethical companies. You should have shilled that now.
Booming business, yeah. You should go out and check out the Ethical Companies podcast on lotus.com.
Because this is just to be clear, this is nothing new, and the exact same thing happened with the guild system in medieval England, promoting Christianity.
Massive amounts of members' money being given to the Christian church instead of being spent on the guild's purpose of making cloth or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah. So we can just essentially say religious activities, which is what we've come back around to now.
So the religious activities have obviously gotten worse. So a survey in 2019 of 234 companies in the S&P 500 found that 63% of diversity professionals had been appointed or promoted to their roles during the past 3 years. In March 2018, the job site Indeed reported that postings for diversity and inclusion professionals had risen 35% upon the previous 2 years.
Big business.
So in the last 2 years especially, but I'm going to say in the last 5 would probably be a best estimate, is the massive explosion of the diversity industry. Because that's what it is.
Oh, absolutely.
It's an industry. And what does it produce? How many factories does it take to produce all the goods, all the consumer goods, the diversity? None. Doesn't produce anything whatsoever. Just talk. Endless talk.
These are symbolic posts, aren't they? Where people can preach radical left-wing ideas at companies.
Like a church. Like, you could say that a church can give you meaning or the truth and all that, and that's how these people see their job as well. They see meaning in life by advancing equality and diversity. What does that mean? Prayers, by the sounds of it.
Because there's no solid metrics against which they can be judged, and no one's going to get fired for not doing their job.
Because there is no job. The job is just to be a front person who says things.
Continually broadcast the message. That's what it is.
So her complaint here as a leftist is that they're not getting the percentage of brown-skinned people and women in the positions that she desires. In positions she doesn't desire, then she doesn't care, of course, because that's how this always works. You know, why are there not too many female bricklayers? Never a question that gets asked by feminists. She says, the lucrative industry shows few signs of waning from a spike in well-compensated diversity consultants and czars. I'm glad we're pointing that out. To online courses and degree programs at prestigious schools, to professional organizations and conferences, to the commissioning of ever more studies, task forces, and climate surveys. Yeah, the whole thing is a catastrophic waste of money. There is endless things they can do. None of them produce anything other than patting themselves on the back going, good job, lads. Very diverse. But while business targeting diversity is flourishing, diversity is not.
Wow, I can't believe this didn't work out.
It wasn't real diversity.
Real diversity's never been tried. You've got to understand, Callum.
That's literally her argument, actually. So people of colour who make up nearly 40% of the US population remain acutely underrepresented in most influential fields. The uninfluential fields she doesn't give a toss about. From 2009 to 2018, the percentage of black law partners inched up from 1.7% to 1.8%.
Okay, but what are we going to do? Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to get someone to go out and conscript black people into law schools?
Ja, wollen mein Führer.
Oh, exactly.
We're going to force the black people into the law department. At any means necessary, I guess. From 1985 to 2016, the proportion of black men in management in US companies with 100 or more employees barely budged from 3% to 3.2%. Again, what do you want to do? Like, there is no barrier in their way in the hiring process. We've criminalized all that.
And not only that, you've got affirmative action hiring policies that are deliberately trying to hire these people, and you can't get them.
Which is criminal action. And yet, it just goes on. And then you have your diversity schemes, as you point out, billions upon billions of dollars per year being spent. And, well, then what? I mean, literally, as you say, you're going to have to take a bayonet and force these guys into the roles that you want, I guess.
Well,
Which is what South
return to tradition.
South African government ended up doing, actually. So not impossible. People of color held 16% of Fortune 500 board seats in 2018. A 2018 survey of the 15 largest public fashion and apparel companies found that non-whites held only 11% of board seats, while nearly 3/4 of the companies were CEOs were white men.
I love that it's just non-whites. Just non-whites. Any of them. Non-whites. Just gather them all together. They're all basically the same.
I should say that I have no idea where Asians land on this, because of course they were tag-feared out of the black and brown group into the white race a while back by the progressives. So, like, as she says, non-whites, but what does that actually mean? And also, where's the barrier?
Get the colour swatch out, I guess.
Yeah, Italians, not white. So, she continues. A look at higher education, where, in the fall of 2017, 81% of full-time professors in degree-generating post-secondary schools were white, while just 3% were Hispanic and 4% were black. I'm getting very much Hamza Yusuf vibes from this lady.
Yeah, I'm getting exactly those vibes.
CEOs, white. Professors, white. Okay, what do you want? I want them to be non-white. Why? Because I feel better about it.
Because I don't like whites, I guess.
Okay, zealot, get out. I don't care about your weird extremism. So through the 1960s, saw the introduction of affirmative action policies. Now here comes her solution to this problem. Intended to address the history of slavery following the centuries of discrimination against people of color. Yes, we will address discrimination against people of color with discrimination against people of non-color. Because that's a solvable problem there. Decades of legal challenges have undermined these measures. Why? What were they? They were legal challenges on the basis of civil rights that you can't discriminate on the basis of race.
I love the fact that it came to California going, look, can we just repeal this anti-discrimination law? Thankfully, it didn't pass, but like that's where they were going with it.
That's her agreeing with that point here. So she says, and since 1978, for example, Regents of the University of California versus Bake has prohibited institutions from using racial quotas or other remedies to address past discrimination. You don't address past discrimination and fix that discrimination as if that can be done because it's in the past with new discrimination. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's actually exactly what they think.
It is what they think, and is what she's promoting as the solution to the problem of Diversity Inc. Which, because of this decision, says Columbia University President Lee Bollinger, who, as president of the University of Michigan, was named in 2 lawsuits in which white students who'd been denied admission claimed reverse discrimination.
I hate the way they use the word reverse. It's not reverse, it's just discrimination.
Quote, were deprived of the context that gave it a sense of mission. Every college leader is told, do not defer to history. So, she says that we tried racial discrimination and got sued, us as the leftists here, and this chap here has been named in 2 lawsuits in which he or his institution discriminated against white students. And the problem here is that the institution has backed down on that, and we should be able to defer to history. What he's saying there is we should be able to look at discrimination in the past and say, that's the solution applied to today.
Which is what's happening to the Asians at Harvard. And they lost that case as well.
Yeah.
It was awful.
It's unbelievable. I don't know how this keeps marching. You would have thought anyone with a brain in a courtroom would have just been like, racist, get lost.
Well, it's just open. And these guys are obviously, very hardworking. They've got great grades, but they can't come in because they're Asian and we've got too many Asians. Sorry.
There was a funny case in which an Indian guy went to his admissions thing and he just shaved his head to look black and then claimed he was black in the admissions and got in.
Good for him, I guess.
Yeah.
Game the system.
That's how you got to do it, Asians. You got to become black. So, in recent years,
good luck, Japanese.
Diversity has been touted as a feel-good exercise that includes everything from gender to sexual orientation to body size. Yeah, that kind of sounds stupid, doesn't it? Yep. Like, why are you claiming body size is something we should be celebrating, regardless of what size it is? Yeah, it's like your ideology is moronic, but she just papers over that. But while we should be concerned about discrimination against any group,
are these groups of fat people really a group?
Also, how do you limit paedophiles from being included in those groups? You don't, do you? Because inclusion is total. There is no limiting principle. The term has become such a catch-all that we've lost focus of the original intention of anti-discrimination efforts. I hate the double thing. Anti-discrimination efforts. What we need to do? More discrimination. Quote, there hasn't been enough pushback on the abstraction of diversity, the professor says from earlier. And it's like, both of you are advancing discrimination. There's what you've just said, a paragraph up. that you need to discriminate against whites, Asians. Well, I suppose they're also whites these days, aren't they? I suppose Indians also whites. Arabs, yeah, can add them in too. They're rich.
Oh no,
so.
no. I think that there is a legal classification in America that is white.
Oh, the Asians are in it.
Yeah, no, Mexicans are in it. Like loads of people have essentially lobbied legally to be advanced into the category of white. I don't know why they bother with that anymore. I mean, God.
So you continues. What's more, many whites now claim they are being disenfranchised. Yeah, I wonder why that is.
Well, all the lawsuits seem to imply it.
A 2017 NPR poll found that 55% of white Americans believe that white people are discriminated against. They believe that there is discrimination against white people. 55%. Okay? While more tellingly, a lower percentage said they actually experienced discrimination. You're not listening to yourself. Like 55% have said it exists, and you're like, yeah, but only like 5% have said that they've experienced it. It doesn't
prove the point.
Yeah.
The other 45% are just unaware of this.
Like, that's your own words here. Although the worsening racial climate appears to power the diversity industry, it's almost as if that's the reason for the raising of racial tensions by you people every 2 minutes, a number of studies suggest that these initiatives can actually make matters worse by triggering racial resentment.
Oh, no kidding.
Think of Google's engineer who was fired for writing a memo deriding the company's diversity efforts.
James Damore.
Although Google reportedly spends $114 million on diversity program in 2014, that company alone, $114 million. Burn it. That's all that's done there. Because it's just, as you said with the guilds, given to the church. So, the Church of Diversity, which does nothing.
I'm reasonably sure that if Google gave me $100 million, I could hire more black people for them. I mean, I just don't think it'd be a very hard job.
They actually say they kind of failed in doing that. So, its diversity report this year from Google shows that blacks made up 3.3% of the workforce, held 2.1% of the tech jobs and 2.6% of the leadership roles. So even though they spent $114 million just in 2014, and then presumably hundreds of millions in every other year,
yeah,
it can't even hire the black people. Like, if you just gave that money to one guy to set up, I don't know, like just a factory that made cars or something, like, you'd be able to do better.
$100 million, and you couldn't get results.
Yeah. And then there's a complaint at the end of this from a black filmmaker, and she's a member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, and says that more attention must also be paid to what happens once people of color are hired. So the real problem is when we get in, we don't want to be there, I guess.
So what are they going to do? Like, we've hired a black person, yay!
Yeah,
confetti.
Well, the Welsh government was going to give
cake.
mentors, weren't they?
Oh yeah, black mentors to
As in, we're going to bring in a white guy and have him be the mentor to the black hire.
No, I thought they were going to hire black guys to mentor the white people.
I know, other way around, diversity mentors.
Okay.
I remember it was going to be like, you could have a black teacher in there, and you'd hire a diversity mentor to lecture them on diversity, and it would look a bit weird. But she says, there should be some brown faces when I'm pitching. Until there's diversity at every level, I doubt filmmakers of color will be on the same level playing field. Which I don't get that statement at all. She's saying, until there's enough faces in the room that have the same skin tone as me, people won't take me seriously. It's like, right, hang on. But how does that not apply to anything else? Because this is intersectional logic. You can also be discriminated against on the fact that you're a woman, aren't you? In which case, there needs to be an equal number of women in the
Well, she
room
will,
as
of course, make that exact argument.
And then there's going to be the problem. I mean, this also applies to, presumably, her own university. There needs to be the same number of graduates of her university, so then they can better represent her background. Because what's the difference there on the argument? And then the same thing, it essentially comes down to, until everyone in the room agrees with me, I don't feel like I'm being taken seriously. Which, that is what she's arguing, let's be honest. So, she says at the end here, just to finish off, in the end, racial diversity will not be ushered in by pledges, slogans, or SARS. It will be achieved only once white America is weaned off a prevailing narrative of racial preeminence, which can still be glimpsed at in historical narratives, films, and literature, and is racially offensive iconography like blackface.
Oh, yes, because there's so much blackface in Hollywood these days.
But also the idea that just because it exists, I don't know, presumably in a museum, or just, as she says, in a novel, therefore it has to go because it's harming current America.
Well, have you read Huckleberry Finn, Callum?
Has she ever heard of the Cultural Revolution?
Probably not.
Because that's what she's asking for.
Yes.
Just take all of the old stuff, burn it, destroy it, because it's currently causing discrimination. Lunatic. Absolute lunatic. She says, the seeds of this corrosive ideology are planted early, and a paradigm shift will require courageous leadership. Yes, change will require
courageous
resources.
leadership. That's a very interesting and flexible phrase.
Well, when she's promoting racial discrimination, I mean, it would be courageous, I guess. Resources to resolve, but no amount of money will succeed alongside a willful negation of our shared humanity. Not shared with the white members of the boardrooms, I suppose. But anyway, this lady is obviously kind of nuts. But I love how this is just published. Like, yeah, the diversity industry is massive money. That's what it really is. What's funny is she actually, the reason she was called upon to write this, is she wrote a book saying exactly this as well. So if we go to the next link, this is the Amazon book she wrote, in which, this is just talking about the fact that Amazon stole $10 million from its customers and employees by giving money to these organizations. So wasting it on diversity and inclusion instead of giving the savings to its customers, for example.
Wow.
But the next one is the Amazon link for her book, in which she talks about this, Diversity Inc., the failed promise of $1 billion business.
It's probably worth a read, to be honest.
But that's the funny thing. Like, even leftists are noticing, hang on, we're getting given so much cash.
Where's it going?
It's inhuman, and yet we don't do anything. Like, all we do is just sit around and play patty cake and say, racism bad, isn't it?
I mean,
yeah, that's the normal narrative.
yeah. No, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. So she talks about the fact that no goals are achieved in here. And what was funny is I looked up the term Diversity Inc. because I wanted to know, like, is it a meme? Because it sounds like a meme.
Yeah.
Because it was a meme for her when she made this book, presumably. It turns out it's a real company. Do you know
Really?
Do you know what they do?
Well, diversity.
Exactly what she's talking about.
Yeah.
They get paid loads of money to do nothing. So let's go to the next link. So Diversity Inc., a real company. They say in here that Diversity Inc. is the dominant diversity publication. Eek.
Oh, I love this. Their mission is to bring education and clarity to the business benefits of diversity. Wow, that doesn't sound like a money sink or anything, does it? like they're going to be doing this forever. Forever.
When does it end?
Yeah, never.
When is diversity achieved?
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's not. It's never ever. Like, even if we get rid of all of the laws of racial discrimination, as the United States has done, doesn't matter. That's not important.
Send this over to the UEFA England football team.
But then they're just going to argue, well, we need the right percentage. I mean, that's the argument these days, isn't it? We
Yeah.
need the percentage of black and brown people or women or whatever it is, group they want to talk about today, because the other group's been satisfied and therefore, well, diversity marches on. And once that's achieved, well, then what? Well, then it has to be updated every year with the new percentage, doesn't it?
Right.
So it's just a money sink. And they say in here, executives from these companies, the companies for which they harass for cash, share their data because they want to compete for the best human capital in the marketplace that is increasingly non-male and increasingly non-white.
Not by that much increasingly. What are you talking about? The problem is it hasn't been increasing.
Like that was the point Pamela laid out, is that your organization, and people like you are just a money sink.
You're a front
You're
for a
paid,
scam.
you are paid unbelievable amounts of money as an industry, and you achieve nothing. I mean, even with the left's ridiculous goals of equality of outcome, they're not interested in equal treatment,
Yeah.
because that's been achieved. They want the equality of outcome, which is why she's talking about percentages. That is no change whatsoever.
Hundreds of millions of dollars year
Billions
after
and
year
billions
after
and
year.
billions.
And still 3.2%. Why can't this change? I don't know.
I mean, 8 billion in 2003. I mean, God knows how many billion per year in the 2010s, 2020s.
Can you even imagine, with Black Lives Matter and Pride of being everywhere, how many hundreds of billions of dollars being spent on this junk?
And not just in the United States. The entire Anglosphere does this nonsense.
Mad.
I mean, it really is just amazing. And some of the stuff they mention on here is also really funny because, I mean, what do you expect? So let's go to the next one, which they have their propaganda, because that's all they are.
Good recommendations. So, I mean, the most notable ones, of course, being Robin DiAngelo and Ibram Kendi, How to Be an Anti-Racist and White Fragility. I mean, what do you expect? Go check out our Conservatives Guide to White Fragility on lotus.com if you'd like to know more about this nonsense.
And also the companies in which they say they've worked with. So we go to the next one. They have their list of 50 companies. And here, just some of them they mention: Hilton, MasterCard, Target. That was money well wasted, wasn't it, lads?
Wells Fargo.
The Northam
Fargo twice for some reason.
Northrop Grumman Corporation,
Target
the
twice.
weapons company, and also the Boeing company,
Oh, well,
the weapons
yeah,
company.
Yeah. General Motors. Yeah, I can see why the bombs being dropped on the Arabs are now with rainbow diversity.
But yeah, I just feel nice that a leftist has finally seen through their own nonsense, which is just
about time.
Yeah, we're a bunch of crooks. We just steal money and do nothing.
If you enjoyed this segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can watch the full broadcast live every weekday at 1 p.m. UK time on lotuseaters.com.